You did mention the cost of living in your last answer, and it's a great point. Is the cost of living, obviously it's higher now than it was when you wrote the book, but in terms of the percentage, do we live in a much more difficult world in terms of cost of living than we did in the 80s when you wrote this book?
Yeah, we do. And, statistically, that can be backed up. Let's leave out real estate for a second. The last 5 years have been very tough. That inflation run was difficult. I would argue that the true inflation rate was much higher than the reported inflation rate. I mean, remember when they said that over the 5-year period that we had food costs go up 20-something%. Well, if you're in the grocery store, you knew that wasn't the case. They were going up significantly more than that over that stretch. And even now when people say, well, inflation is more subdued, we've got it more under control, but that doesn't mean prices have gone down. We haven't had deflation. So people are still dealing with very high prices. Then add in the cost of real estate. And a higher percentage of people's income has to go to supporting their rent, supporting their mortgage. And if you look, by the way, beyond mortgage costs with home ownership, at property taxes, at insurance, at upkeep, at doing a rental, all of that, in my mind, in most areas has risen at a faster than CPI clip. So all of this is very challenging. And then on top of it all, can you imagine trying to get together a down payment?
No.
When you have homes trading at this multiple of income, and you're trying to, let's say, for example, hit that 20% level to avoid having to get the insurance. Oh my gosh. If you're looking at a $700,000 home, and let's say you're in Toronto and you're looking at an $800,000 home, that's a $160,000 down payment you have to save after tax. That's why, sadly, probably the most important advice in financial planning now is choose your parents wisely.
That's a great point.
We don't want it to be that way.
No,
I mean, that's
no,
not what it's supposed to be about. If people are working hard, saving diligently, we want everybody to be able to get ahead. And so these real estate prices have definitely made it more challenging. And as I alluded to earlier, I would say also temptation is more difficult for most of us to resist now, including young people. The algorithms are always coming at you. Your friends are coming at you through highlight moments in social media. Credit is ubiquitously available. Anybody can just tap and go now, and they've purchased whatever they want. You add all of this up, and my argument is that the boomers don't realize it is indeed tougher right now. I'm honestly not judgmental when people ask me questions, show me their spending summaries, look for help, et cetera. I kind of look at it and say, here are some things that you maybe should think through. Have you thought about this? There's one area I am pretty judgmental on, and that's what a lot of people spend on cars. And if you look at the line item for car expenses, not just the actual car payments, but beyond that, you've got parking, you've got gas, some unavoidable, unquestionably, but a lot of this we take on voluntarily. So while the complaints about the real estate prices, the cost of living, they're totally justified, you would think that that would lead us to spending less on cars as a percentage of income. Not the case at all. The car industry has done a wonderful job of making us define ourselves to some extent by the car we drive. Not everybody falls victim to this, but an unfortunate percentage of people do.
That's a great point. That's the one thing I'm definitely not an expert, but I've been arguing that my whole life because all my buddies are into cars. They love spending all their money on cars, and I'm not at all a car. I have a car that's paid off. It's old. It runs. It's fine. And I feel like I've done better because of that. That's been a huge help. But what you mentioned is true, right, David? That push, you mentioned it earlier, the algorithms, the social media, that idea that we have to keep up with the Joneses. It's harder to fight now even than it was a few years ago.
The Joneses are everywhere. And oftentimes the Jodens are overwhelmed with that. We just don't realize it. And again, you're only seeing the highlight moments of all of your friends and colleagues and coworkers and everybody else on social media. And it just pulls us in and makes us spend. And then with credit being ubiquitously available, as I mentioned, that's a bad combination. But just going back to your point about how you've handled your car expenses, that decision alone has freed up a lot of money for you to be able to max a TFSA, for example. I see it all the time when I see people of income levels that are equal, couples, and they're doing everything the same, equal income levels, equal housing costs even. One couple is doing a very good job managing car expenses, the other not so much. The difference in their financial planning is astounding. And so that's one thing I think all of us have to take a closer look at. But I've almost given up a little bit on that because I've been preaching this for 20 to 30 years and don't seem to be too impactful. And of course, cars have become even more expensive relative to incomes over the last 5 years, as have car repairs, and therefore logically, as has car insurance. And so all of this seems to be getting worse, not better.